here before us. You're talking to a pretty tough audience here because we're all frequent flyers. And, you know, I go back and forth from Ohio every week, a couple times, I guess. We're also, though, all pre-check, I would think. And so when I'm in the pre-check line in Cincinnati and Columbus and Cleveland, it's a lot shorter. It's not like Dulles or Nashville where a lot of people are in pre-check. And so a lot of the questions we're asking you are about not pre-check, but, you know, how do we be sure and expedite everybody? And by the way, the TSA folks who I deal with every week are courteous, they're professional, the vast majority of them, vast majority. I remember being here at a hearing recently where Senator Carper said he thanks them as he goes through, as I try to do, and I say, you know, thanks for keeping us safe. They look at you kind of funny, like, no one's ever said that to me before. And that was your experience, too. On the other hand, they do, you know, all work for us as taxpayers. That's right. And we're going to talk a second ago about, you know, what you've done with regard to Mr. Ross' report that came out just before you were confirmed in June of last year. But in terms of the training, just quickly, on the customer service side, what are you doing in terms of measuring performance and training?
Well, you know, that was one of my big concerns when I came in. And in fact, I extend beyond customer service. I call this is what true public service is all about, providing an important service to the public in a way that treats them with respect and dignity, and that recognizes the inherent inconvenience of what you're doing. So that's an important thing to do. So we built that into our new TSA Academy training. So all of our new hires now, there's an entire component on what it means to be a public servant. You know, and what that public is that you serve. I mean, these are people who are your fellow citizens. And there's a part of it where they say, think of these as your family members, assuming you like your family members, but think of these as your family members as they're coming through. So I hope people are seeing, and anecdotally, we're getting reports that people are seeing a difference among the workforce as they come through, and we've done that back through the entire workforce. You know, that takes frontline leadership to make it work. So we're also working on that first-line supervisory leadership training. That's critical. We need to do more of that in TSA. It just hadn't been done consistently.
Well, I appreciate that attitude and that approach, and I know that's your personal approach, and I do think actually it expedites the process as well. I mean, there's a safety aspect to this also, in addition to the fact that it is a matter of customer service for the taxpayers who are inconvenienced. This report last June was incredibly troubling. Mr. Roth hasn't gotten to answer many questions, so I may not give you a chance here either. But I'm going to tell you about your report. 95%. 95%. So in 95% of the time, TSA was not finding dangerous items. Security screeners failed to detect weapons, mock explosives, other prohibited items 95% of the time. Shocking. This is before your time. We also found that there were 73 individuals employed by the aviation industry who were on the terror watch list. And at the time, I did some questions to you as part of your confirmation. You indicated you were going to immediately put in place some things that Secretary Johnson was talking about to address both those issues, and that you were going to look at the more systemic problems. Can you give us a quick report where we are on that 95%? Mr. Ross said that you're continuing to do testing and audits, but you didn't tell us what the percentage was. So either of you, if you could answer that.
Well, I can't talk about percentage of what we're finding in open session, but what I'll tell you is that we're better. As you know, one of the biggest concerns I have was to, first of all, find out why did we have a failure rate of that magnitude. And as it turns out, it was really that we were asking the frontline workforce to do something directly in opposition to what their job was. If their job is to ensure something doesn't get past a checkpoint, well, then you can't ride them about moving people more faster through a checkpoint. And so if I put myself in the shoes of a frontline officer, you know, they're torn between, you know, I'm told I can't hold things up, but I got something to look at. So we've gotten better at that. We retrained the whole workforce, and I think that we're significantly better. I'm hoping that the Inspector General's testing bears that out as we go forward.
Mr. Roth, anything to say on that?
As I indicated in my testimony, we are going to do some covert testing this summer. I will be candid that we have taken a look at some of the red team testing that TSA has done. we think that our testing will be more objective, and I think those results will be more accurate. So we will wait and see what happens.
This committee will be very interested in the results of that test. And in terms of the terror watch list, I assume you're comfortable that that has been addressed?
Yes, just so we understand, there are two lists. One is the terrorist watch list itself, and the other is the TIDE database, which is the larger list from which the smaller list gets nominated. They did not have access to the larger list. It was largely bureaucratic inertia, not on TSA's part, but on DHS's part, as well as the intelligence community's parts. That has been fixed, and we think that TSA now has all the information it needs to be able to adjudicate those things.
My time has expired, but I'm going to ask a question for the record with regard to Cuba. I'm very concerned about the agreement the administration has made with Cuba, concerned about reports I hear about TSA opening not 8, but another additional 2 airports without any kind of screening that we would consider acceptable, and these are all going to be, as I understand it, points of departure to the United States. I know there's been travel, for instance, from Afghanistan to Cuba and so on, so I'll ask questions for the record on that issue, but I want to express my concern right now that we be sure that those airports are fully vetted and they have the proper security screening in place.
Senator Hyde.